Wow, can you believe how one small act of kindness changed Jake's entire life? Imagine if you were in his shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, tell me where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We have another unbelievable story dropping tomorrow, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. See you in the next one. The cashier helped an old lady. He had no idea who she really was. Jake Reynolds had spent the past 2 years working as a cashier at a small-town grocery store in Texas. At 24 years old, he wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, he was just a hard-working guy, trying to make ends meet while saving up for college. Every day was the same routine: scan groceries, smile at customers, bag their items, and move on to the next. But on this particular afternoon, something happened that would change his life forever. The bell above the entrance jingled as an elderly woman walked into the store, pushing a small shopping cart. Her name was Eleanor Hayes, though Jake didn't know it yet. She had a kind face, soft gray curls tucked under a simple hat, and wore a well-worn cardigan. Her basket was filled with just the essentials: a loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, some vegetables, and a few cans of soup. Jake greeted her with his usual warm smile as he started scanning her items. Everything seemed normal until she reached into her purse to pull out her wallet. Her hands trembled slightly as she searched, her smile faltering. Her face turned pale. "Oh dear. I must have left my wallet at home," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The line behind her started shifting impatiently. A man sighed loudly. A woman checked her watch. The store manager, standing near the registers, gave Jake a look. "Hurry it up." Eleanor looked up at Jake with pleading eyes. "I can put some things back. I don't want to hold up the line." Jake hesitated for only a second before making a split-second decision. Without saying a word, he reached into his back pocket, pulled out his own wallet, and quickly swiped his card. Eleanor gasped. "Young man, you don't have to do that." Jake just shrugged, flashing an easygoing smile. "It's okay, ma'am. It's on me. Just promise me you'll have a great day." For a moment, Eleanor just stared at him, her eyes wide. Then, to Jake's surprise, they welled up with tears. She squeezed his hand gently and whispered, "You're a blessing." Then, with a grateful nod, she took her bag and slowly walked out of the store. Jake thought that was the end of it. He had no idea that one simple act of kindness would set off a chain of events that would change his life forever. A week had passed since Jake Reynolds paid for Eleanor Hayes' groceries, and the moment had nearly slipped from his mind. It wasn't that he didn't care, he just never expected anything to come from it. To him, it was just a small act of kindness, something anyone should do. But then, something unusual happened. That morning, as Jake was finishing up stocking the shelves, a sleek black SUV pulled into the parking lot. It wasn't the type of car you normally saw in their small Texas town. The doors opened, and out stepped a tall man in a dark suit, followed by an older woman with silver curls neatly styled under a hat. Jake's stomach flipped. It was her. Eleanor. But something was different. The shy, nervous woman from the checkout line was gone. Instead, she looked poised, confident, almost regal. The store manager, Mr. Caldwell, was in the middle of checking inventory when he turned and saw the pair walking in. His eyes widened, and he quickly smoothed his shirt before rushing forward. "Mrs. Hayes." "What a surprise," he said, his tone suddenly full of respect. Jake frowned. "Mrs. Hayes?" Why was the manager acting like she was some kind of VIP? Before he could piece it together, Eleanor turned toward him, her eyes warm with recognition. She smiled. "Jake, I've been looking for you." Jake swallowed hard. "Me?" She nodded, reaching into her purse and pulling out a neatly folded document. "I need to tell you something." By now, a few customers and employees had started paying attention. The entire store seemed to quiet as Eleanor took a deep breath. "You didn't know this, but I'm not just an elderly woman struggling to buy groceries," she said gently. "My name is Eleanor Hayes, and I own this entire grocery chain." The words hit Jake like a truck. For a moment, he just stood there, blinking. "What?" Even Mr. Caldwell looked stunned. A few cashiers gasped. Jake felt like his brain had short-circuited. "I've spent my life building this company from the ground up," Eleanor continued, "but lately, I've wondered if the people working here still have the kindness that started it all. So, I decided to see for myself." Jake's hands felt clammy. "You mean, you were testing us?" Eleanor chuckled softly. "In a way. But you did something no one else did." Jake's heart pounded as she held out the document toward him. "And because of that, I want to change your life." Jake Reynolds stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. Eleanor Hayes owned the entire grocery chain? The woman he had helped just a week ago wasn't just any customer, she was the founder of the very store he worked at. The entire room had gone silent. Even the store manager, Mr. Caldwell, looked stunned, shifting uncomfortably as if he had just realized he might have overlooked something important. A few customers had stopped mid-shopping, whispering among themselves, stealing glances at the unexpected scene unfolding at the front of the store. Eleanor smiled warmly, holding out a neatly folded document. Jake hesitated before slowly reaching for it, his hands slightly shaking. "You did something no one else did," Eleanor said gently. "You saw a person in need, and instead of ignoring them or rushing them along, you stepped in. Not because you had to, but because you chose to. That kind of kindness is rare these days." Jake swallowed hard. "I just thought it was the right thing to do." Eleanor chuckled. "That's exactly why I'm here." Jake unfolded the document, scanning the words. His breath caught in his throat. A full scholarship. Tuition. Housing. Books. Everything covered. His eyes darted back up to Eleanor. This can't be real." Eleanor nodded. "Consider it an investment, one that's well deserved." The store erupted into murmurs. A cashier whispered, "Did she just give him a scholarship?" Another employee, who had been restocking shelves, muttered, "No way, this is like something out of a movie." Jake's hands trembled as he clutched the paper. He had spent years working double shifts, saving every penny, wondering if he'd ever be able to afford college. And now, in a single moment, his entire future had changed. "I don't know what to say," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Just keep being the person you are, Jake. That's more than enough." Jake blinked rapidly, fighting back the overwhelming rush of emotion. He had never expected his small act of kindness to turn into something like this. But sometimes, life has a way of rewarding the people who least expect it. Jake Reynolds stared at the scholarship letter in his hands, his mind racing. Just a week ago, he was struggling to save for college, working long shifts at a grocery store, unsure if he'd ever be able to afford it. And now, Eleanor Hayes, the billionaire founder of the grocery chain, had just handed him a full scholarship. It felt unreal. The murmurs in the store grew louder. Employees whispered to each other, customers craned their necks to get a better look. Even Mr. Caldwell, the store manager, seemed at a loss for words. He had spent years enforcing efficiency, making sure cashiers kept the line moving. But today, everything had come to a halt for something far bigger. Jake took a deep breath, still gripping the letter like it might disappear if he let go. I don't know what to say," he finally stammered. Eleanor chuckled, her eyes twinkling. "Just say yes." Jake let out a shaky laugh, barely believing this was happening. "Of course, yes. I mean, thank you. I don't even know how to thank you enough." Eleanor's smile softened. "You already did, Jake. That day at the register, you didn't hesitate to help someone in need. You had no idea who I was, and yet you showed kindness without expecting anything in return. That's why I know this opportunity is going to the right person." A wave of emotion crashed over him. His whole life, he had worked hard, trying to do the right thing, hoping it would pay off someday. But never in his wildest dreams did he think it would happen like this. The store erupted into applause. Customers clapped, fellow employees patted him on the back, and even Mr. Caldwell gave him a nod of approval. It wasn't just about the scholarship anymore, it was about what Jake's act of kindness had reminded everyone in that store. Kindness matters. One small decision, one moment of generosity, had set off a chain reaction that changed his life forever. Eleanor Hayes stepped forward and extended her hand. "Congratulations, Jake. You've earned this." As he shook her hand, a thought crossed his mind. If one small act of kindness could do this, what else was possible? The applause still echoed in Jake Reynolds' ears as Eleanor Hayes gave him a final nod of approval. The scholarship letter in his hands felt like the key to a future he never thought possible. Just a week ago, he had been another cashier in a small-town grocery store, clocking in and out, wondering if he'd ever make it to college. Now, his life had completely changed, all because of one small act of kindness. As the excitement settled, Jake found himself standing outside the store, still trying to process what had happened. The cool Texas air brushed against his face, but his mind was buzzing. This kind of thing didn't happen in real life. Or at least, that's what he used to think. His coworkers approached him one by one, offering congratulations, claps on the back, and even a few teasing comments. "So, Jake, when you make your first million, don't forget about us," one of them joked. Jake chuckled, shaking his head. "I still have to figure out what to do with all this." But deep down, he already knew. He wasn't just going to take this blessing and move on, he was going to pay it forward. Over the next few days, the story spread like wildfire. Local newspapers picked it up. Social media exploded with shares. People across town started talking about the young cashier who had unknowingly helped a billionaire and, in return, had his entire future changed. But for Jake, the real reward wasn't the attention. It was the lesson. He realized that kindness isn't just something you do when it's convenient. It's a choice. A decision to see people, to help when you can, to make the world just a little bit better. And what shocked him the most? It was contagious. Customers at the store started paying for strangers' groceries. People began leaving bigger tips at restaurants, donating to local charities, and reaching out to neighbors in need. His small act of kindness had started something much bigger than himself. As Jake walked home that night, under a sky full of stars, he couldn't help but smile. He had no idea what the future held, but he knew one thing for sure: he would never stop choosing kindness. Because in the end, one simple gesture can change everything. Wow, what an incredible story! It's amazing how one small act of kindness can lead to something life-changing. If you were in Jake's shoes, what would you have done? Would you have helped Eleanor without hesitation, or would you have second-guessed yourself? Let us know in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a moment where kindness came back to you in an unexpected way? Maybe a stranger helped you when you needed it most, or you did something small that made a big impact on someone else's life. We'd love to hear your stories. Share them with us. Also, tell us where you're watching from. It's always incredible to see how far these stories travel. Your comments make this community stronger, and we love engaging with you. And if this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another incredible real-life story. We've got another heartwarming and unexpected tale coming tomorrow, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Thank you for being part of our community, and remember, kindness always finds its way back to you. See you in the next one.